Madam Chair, it is 9 o'clock. We're ready to begin when you're ready.
Good morning, all. Happy State Budget Day. Woohoo! Doug, will you please call the order? Call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Bradshaw.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Falcone. Commissioner Grisby.
Present.
Vice Chair Guardino.
Present.
Commissioner Lugo. Commissioner Liu. Commissioner Martinez.
Present.
Commissioner Norton.
Present.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Eager.
Here.
Senator Newman. Assemblymember Friedman. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Doug. Will you please give the instructions for folks online?
Welcome back to the June 2022 meeting of the California Transportation Commission. We're on day 2. The meeting agenda, if you need it, is located under the Handouts tab, and on our website, there are also hard copies at the back of the room if you're here in person. Live closed captioning and American Sign Language translators are being provided on the webinar for the meeting. You should be able to see the sign language interpretation on your screen, and access to the closed captioning service is provided through links found on our commission website. A reminder that any commission document that we have created can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov and we'll have them returned to you as soon as possible. The members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as part of each item at this meeting. For those attending in person, please fill out and submit a speaker slip to me. I am the clerk here at the front of the room, and let us know you want to comment on an item. To those attending via the webinar, you should see a control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. There you will find a raised hand feature as well as a questions tab. We encourage you to use the raised hand feature as early into the item as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. Alternately, you may use the questions tab to submit your comment. Please be sure to include the item agenda number you're commenting on so staff can refer to it when reading your comment. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to address the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants as it can cause confusion for staff. Please do your best to be concise. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on a topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Douglas. So first up today is Tim Sobelman with an informational item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 55 is an information item. The 2018 California Transportation Asset Management Plan and Senate Bill 1 each established 10-year performance targets for the State Highway Operations and Protection Program primary asset classes. To measure progress towards meeting the defined performance targets, the Commission adopted an addendum to the SHOP guidelines, calling on the department to develop annual benchmarks with future condition projections to measure progress made for each of the 4 primary asset classes towards achieving the 10-year targets. Mike Johnson, the State Asset Management Engineer for Caltrans, is here to provide a presentation on the 2021-22 Performance Benchmark Report. Mike?
Good morning. Sorry, can you hear me okay? Good morning, Chair Eager, Commissioners, Director Tavares. So I'm still getting used to saying that. Glad to be here this morning in person. I was going to do this virtually yesterday, so fortunate enough that schedules worked out. I could be here in person, so appreciate that. Before I jump into the presentation, I just wanted to acknowledge the Commission. There was a note that Executive Director Weiss made yesterday. Yes, you, Mitch. It was a good thing. He noted the collaboration that took place that resulted in the shop project book being available to the public in the world for that matter at this point. This was a really great effort, and I just wanted to personally acknowledge Tim, John Prey, and Executive Director Weiss for their support in really helping to bring the public in that was approaching the commission with Caltrans. And when we all sat down at the table, we were able to do some pretty amazing things. And for any of you that haven't had a chance, I would encourage you to go to the website. It's a dashboard of every shop project that we're planning to work on for the next 10 years. And it's quite robust. And with the input of the advocacy groups, it became even more robust in early June. And so I think it was a great model of how Caltrans, the commission, and our constituents can work together. So just encourage everybody that gets a chance to take a look. projectbook.dot.ca.gov. It's all downloadable, which was one of the big requests of our advocacy to be able to, put it down into a spreadsheet and work with it, manipulate it, evaluate it. And I think that level of transparency is really going to be healthy for the department and for the state of California. So just want to acknowledge that the commission had a significant role there. So certainly appreciate that. And that's a really good segue into this report, because this report is our annual benchmark report, which is another form of transparency. And this is where we come before the commission and we report on progress that we're making towards achieving the asset management targets established by the commission, as well as the targets that are in statute from SB1. And so with that, if Doug, we can fire up the presentation. Oh, all right. My next slide is too quickly. Okay, so I kind of make it a contest to, what gets on the cover of these presentations. And I just wanted to highlight, I've been trying to highlight a lot of going construction, and you'll hear that theme throughout this presentation, because we are building a lot. And I just, I know in this commission, we can't all be out there all over the state, but there's a lot going on. And here's some examples of some going construction. And I think this project, hopefully will be a highlight at a future commission meeting, because it's got some pretty amazing things going on about it. Okay, so why are we reporting? It's commission guidelines that were put in place that require the department to come in and do this annual progress report. This is our 50% mark. It's hard to believe we're 50% through the Senate Bill 1 10-year period already. So we're at a pretty significant point here. The report features a number of charts and tables, and this is just sort of generic of what they look like. There is, for each of our core assets, there is a chart that shows a gray line that represents where we thought we would be in 2017. So when SB1 first passed, we were asked to sort of crystal ball, what is our path between here and the goal? What's that going to look like? And then the colored line, in this case green, represents where our current projections are. And there, within the green line, there are data points that are solid. Those are actual measured conditions. And then there's hollow data points. Those are projected conditions based on the stream of projects that we have coming in. So there's a little bit to reading those, but that's one thing. And then we also present this information in tabular form that actually shows the percentages of the various asset conditions and what the relative change was from last year to this year. So how do we do the benchmark report? Each year we start with the most current available condition that we have for all the assets. We then apply expected deterioration for the remainder of the period that we're looking at. And then we look at our project pipeline and we say, okay, with all these projects, all the same projects I just mentioned that are available for the public on the project book dashboard, those projects are accomplishing things that are going to improve our asset conditions. So we have to look at what is the accomplishment, and whenever the accomplishments exceed the deterioration, then we know our conditions are going to be improving. And so we're looking at the net of this. For some of the assets, there's also a growth factor, and that's particularly true with like our transportation management system elements, which are growing quite rapidly around the state. And so we also consider growth in this analysis. So the good news, and I'm very pleased to report, we're halfway through. In terms of the Senate Bill 1 targets, we believe we're on target to meet all of these statutory requirements. And in some cases, we've already met them. Like for example, for bridges, we've already fixed more than 500 bridges 5 years into SB1. And we're gonna keep going. We're not gonna stop here. But anyway, green is good and it's all green. So I'm not gonna belabor this one much. Then one of the other sets of performance targets that we look at are the commission adopted asset management targets. And these targets are actually more aggressive than those that were established by Senate Bill 1. And here it's almost all green as well, with the exception of bridge. And the reason is that the bridge, the commission adopted asset management target is a condition-based target, meaning we're looking at the percentage of the entire inventory that exists in each of the conditions, whereas the Senate Bill 1 target was fix an additional 500 bridges. So we fixed an additional 500 bridges, but that hasn't yet resulted in us getting to the conditions that were targeted by the commission in the asset management plan. So we're continuing to work on that. Okay, so quick highlights for pavement. Here's we're a number of years in, so we are well below the target line, which is good. Our challenge here is to maintain the pavement at the levels that we have. We're continuing to fix poor pavement, but as we fix it, some of the fair pavement becomes poor. So there's this churn of work that happens where it moves around the state, but we are definitely below 2% poor, which is the SB1 target as well as the asset management target for most of the pavement. On the right is a pie chart, and you can see that more than 50% of the pavement is in good condition. The bulk of the rest is in fair, and you see that little tiny sliver that's in poor, and that's what we're continually sort of chasing. And that poor moves around. It's not always in one place at one time. So we'll go fix one segment, and then something else pops up that's poor, and so we're perpetually chasing that poor pavement as well as the fair pavement to try to slow down the rate at which it's deteriorating into poor. Just want to show some projects. We're doing a lot of work. We've got this major project that it may even be done by now on Highway 99. I like the photo because as we're putting back the concrete pavement in this example, we're putting reinforcing steel in it. In many cases, we're making the pavement more durable than it was before. And on the right is an aerial view of the Reading to Anderson Interstate 5 project. This was quite a partnership project with the local RTPA up in that area. So a really good success story, and you can see nice shiny black new pavement up there. These are the tables. We split pavement up into 3 different classes. Class 1 represents about half of the pavement in the state and all of the interstates and most of the major routes. And then class 2 and class 3 are getting more and more, generally less volume and more rural as we go down. Okay, quickly for bridges. We're building some bridges, replacing bridges, and that's a really good thing. It takes a long time to replace a bridge. I think I've presented before this commission before that the average time frame from identification to construction completion for a new bridge over water is somewhere on the order of 10 years. Right, so put that in the context that we're 5 years into SB1 and we're starting to show new bridges or replacement bridges being built. And I think for the bridge asset in particular, a lot of the increase from SB1 is really just starting to kick in now because of the delays, the timelines associated with clearing all the environmental process, getting the design, getting the planning, all of that. We're just really starting to see some of these replacements happen. So some really good things happening around the state and bridges. Even in spite of all of that great work that we're doing out there in construction, we did lose a little bit of ground in bridges from a condition standpoint. Again, we've fixed more than 500 already. You know, we can kind of put a check mark by the SB1 statutory requirement, but we need to do more here. And we came before this commission last October. We asked you to put a significant number of additional bridge projects into the shop. And appreciate the collaboration with the commission staff and the commission. You granted us that ability. That will move millions of square feet. So all these are measured by the surface area of the bridge. We will be improving millions of square feet through those projects that the commission put into the shop last October. This is just showing the progress over time in terms of where we are with the fixed bridge. Our SB1 target was 500. We believe we're at 550 right now. And those are above and beyond what we were doing pre-SB1. So this chart kind of lays out, where we were before SB1 and then after SB1. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is a little bit challenging. The way that this metric was established, the fixed additional bridges, there has been a lot of discussion within Caltrans. What is a fix? When do you count a fix in terms of the development of the project? And I wanted to just give the commission a little bit of a flavor for how complex this is. So here's a case example for the Antlers Bridge. This is Interstate 5, just north of Reading, and goes over Lake Shasta. Work began on this project in 2009. The bridge was being built, and if you look at the photos from left to right, you can see, we've got some of the foundation and substructure. We have some of the superstructure, but clearly by the second photo, this is not fixed. No one's using this bridge. By the third photo, we still have a gap there. No one's using this bridge. We can't count that as a fix. But in September of 2016, all of the traffic had been shifted over off of the old bridge onto the new bridge. So in our mind, that bridge is now fixed. But that contract's not done because we had to demolish the old bridge. All of that took an additional 2 years and 9 months. And so if you are looking at some of the audits in this area, you will see some recommendations about using what we call contract closeout and acceptance versus when the bridge is open to traffic and the public is actually experiencing that new infrastructure. It is Caltrans' contention that when the bridge is open to the public and they're experiencing that new infrastructure, it is then fixed and not the closeout. And in some cases, depending on what happens with potential construction claims and other things, there can be considerable time between when the public is using a new piece of infrastructure and when the contract closes out. Well, in this case, if we did it based on when the bridge was open to traffic, this would not be counted as a fix because it all happened before SB1. But if we use contract closeout and acceptance, then this is a fix. So this is the kind of dynamic that we're working through with the Inspector General, literally on every bridge, and it's complicated. So I just wanted to give the commission a little bit of insight into how to think about these things as you're reading some of these reports. So switching to some of our other core assets for culverts. The culvert program is continuing to build our inventory. As I've been reporting over the years, I think when I first started reporting, we were somewhere in an order of 50% of the inventory was inspected. In the last year, we've done 27,500 new culverts have been added into the inventory. And so we continue to build the inventory. and continue to make progress. In addition, we're doing a significant amount of culvert work through our projects, and you could see that all of our conditions have improved since last year. We're currently better than the statutory target, which is 10%. We're at 9.9, and we expect that to get even lower because when we look out at the pipeline of projects, it looks pretty robust. For transportation management systems, these are the electronics that manage a lot of the traffic at intersections, as well as improve operations on the highway system through ramp metering and changeable message signs and other things. The TMS objective or asset is essentially flat. There's a 0.3% difference from last year. And this is one that we continue to work very closely with our traffic operations division, as well as all of our districts looking at this. There's considerable focus on this right now, and there's a lot of work in the pipeline. So we're kind of optimistic that as these projects start coming in, we're going to see this, the conditions of this get a little bit better. We're still about 11% away from our SB1 target for this. So there's work to be done. But one of the challenges here is that there's a significant increase in the growth of the transportation management system elements. And as we get to more connected autonomous vehicles, we anticipate that this will even get more significant. And so the inventory is changing regularly. At the same time, we're trying to address these past life cycle items. And it's important for this item in particular that these metrics are based on the expected life cycle of these assets. It doesn't mean that they're not working. It's kind of like predicting how long a light bulb will last. Okay, we're going to look at what is the expected life of this thing? What would be a prudent time to think about swapping it out before you have the light bulb burn out? And so we're trying to maximize the life we can get to be the best stewards of the taxpayers' money. But at the same time, we don't want to disrupt service. So this is really looking at that life cycle replacement of these assets. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't function, but in many cases, they have limited connectivity to other aspects of the transportation system. In other words, they're not interconnected or they're not talking to each other. And we get the best, most efficient use of the system when these things can interact with each other. I mentioned going construction, and I started showing this last year and I liked it. I wanted to show it again because we are doing a lot. And if you drive around the state, you hit a lot of construction. You see it out there. We have $11.5 billion of going construction right now. That's a lot. If you look at that historically, going back to when SB1 was put in place, I mentioned that we're just starting to see the projects that SB1 allowed us to put into the program start to really kick in. It's like we finally feel like, hey, we're hitting on all cylinders right now, and you see it in the going construction. So in conclusion, we're continuing to follow our asset management plan, and this starts with the State Highway System Management Plan, and continues all the way out into through our planning, through our design, and out into maintenance. Making good decisions on materials, good decisions on construction practices, and good decisions on where we're investing to get the outcomes we're looking for. We do expect to meet all the SB1 targets. However, even though things look great, I just, and I caution my team all the time, we can't take our foot off the gas. If we took our foot off the gas now, 5 years in, we would see us fall down probably below these targets really quickly. So we need to keep our investment going in these things and not lose the great momentum that we have. And we continue to monitor this, constantly. That's my job. That's my team's job. That's the department's job overall. And we have a really keen eye on this. The level of detail, I won't, bore you with, but it is significantly more than you see here. This is, the highest level presentation of what's going on, but underneath the hood of this, there's an entire department working to achieve these commitments that were made. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Certainly, as we drive up and down the state, we see those efforts, no matter where we go. I have to say, before I was on the commission and I get to a place where there's construction, you have to go around it, you go, oh man, I got to go around it. Now I get to construction and go, yay, we're constructing. So yes, we see the efforts every single day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, we are on tab 56.
Thank you. Commissioners, tab 56 is an action item. Federal regulations require each state Department of Transportation to update their asset management plan at least every 4 years. The draft 2022 California Transportation Asset Management Plan represents the first formal update to meet the federal requirement and was presented to the Commission in March of this year. Commission staff has reviewed the draft 2022 California Transportation Asset Management Plan and appreciates Caltrans' efforts to be nationwide leaders in the area of asset management and for being proactive in helping non-state agencies capture and report data for the locally overseen portions of the national highway system. Comments range from questions related to the status of assets on the national highway system not managed by Caltrans, impacts of implementing climate change adaptation measures, and how the funding from the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act will help to close the performance gaps for certain assets. It is expected that the 2022 California Transportation Asset Management Plan will be coming to the Commission for approval at the August CTC meeting. Commission staff has reviewed the draft plan and recommends approval of the comments presented in attachment A of this item and the transmittal of these comments to Caltrans.
Do we have any public comment? Excuse me.
No public comment at this time.
Thank you. Any commissioners have comments or questions? And I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I didn't hear who the second was. Sorry. Davis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh. Good morning, Commissioner Lugo.
Thank you. Good morning.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we have item 57, Elika.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 57 is an action item presenting the adoption of the 2022 Aeronautics Acquisition and Development Program. The Aeronautics Acquisition and Development Program, or A&D program, is a 2-year program providing state grants to airports for planning, construction, and land acquisition. There are 21 projects totaling $3.3 million for the 2022 program. Although the aeronautics fund estimate does not include any capacity for the A&D program due to lack of funding, the department will continue to program projects in accordance with the Public Utilities Code. With that, Commissioners, staff recommends approval of the 2022 Aeronautics Acquisition and Development Program.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions? Yes, Commissioner Liu.
I know we talked about this and I can't remember how we resolved it, but in the list of what was it, priorities, we talked about the fact that some capacity projects were ranked higher than some security projects. And then we decided we would take a look at that and try to amend it or update that list.
That's correct.
But that's not going to happen now. It's going to happen.
That's correct. So we are working with the Division of Aeronautics currently, and they will be presenting the new priority ranking list for the 2024 A&D program.
Okay. And you're going to be my advocate to make sure that security is ranked higher than capacity.
Absolutely, Commissioner Liu.
Okay.
Personal advocate. Nice.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Commissioner Liu? Did you second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. It looks like you are up again, Elika.
Commissioners, tab 58 is an informational item presenting the engagement summary report for the 2023 Active Transportation Program. This report highlights the extensive engagement efforts ATP staff conducted in preparation for the 6th cycle of this program. Last cycle, ATP staff took a new approach to the program's engagement activities to make it more responsive to the diverse needs of each community and to also expand on program innovations. We increased engagement efforts by encouraging stakeholders to schedule in-person project site visits while also increasing the number of workshops. The increase in workshops led to the creation of the central and branch workshops. Central workshops focus on recommendations and revisions to the ATP guidelines, applications, and scoring rubrics. Branch workshops are region-specific workshops that provide program education, technical assistance, and analysis of each county's performance in prior ATP cycles. The Cycle 5 engagement resulted in improved application scores where 82% of counties that participated in the 2021 workshops or site visits saw an increase in their average scores compared to prior program cycles. 32% of those counties increased their average scores by over 10 points compared to prior cycles. For the 2023 Active Transportation Program cycle, we continued these efforts. However, these engagement activities were moved to a virtual platform as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The virtual approach significantly extended the geographic reach of our engagement activities as shown in the map being presented. The central workshops attendance increased by 220% compared to prior cycles. The branch workshops also saw an increase in overall county participation compared to Cycle 5. These counties are shown in red on the map. Beginning November 2021 through mid-March 2022, ATP staff conducted a total of 15 workshops consisting of 9 central workshops and 6 branch workshops across 16 counties statewide. The most dramatic increase throughout the ATP engagement activities was seen through the virtual site visits. ATP staff dedicated 2 days a week, starting November 2021 through mid-March of this year, to virtual site visits. However, in response to high demand, we expanded to offering site visits 5 days a week to increase opportunities to meet with as many potential applicants. Over the course of 4 months, ATP staff held 96 virtual site visits, touring 129 projects across 33 counties in the state. These counties are shown in blue on the map. The virtual platform created a 115% increase in project site visits compared to Cycle 5. The virtual site visits allowed us to get a glimpse into the Cycle 6 projects, bolstering staff's knowledge of statewide trends and challenges, and the community investments in creating active transportation networks within urban and rural communities statewide. Out of the 129 projects toured, we have identified at least 73 projects that submitted a regular or quick build application for the 2023 ATP cycle. Through virtual branch workshops and site visits, we saw dramatic growth in active transportation interest across the state. As shown in the map being presented, the virtual platform enhanced geographic equity and accessibility for ATP engagement statewide, resulting in a surge in stakeholder participation. Not only were stakeholders pursuing direct technical assistance for their Cycle 6 projects through these engagement activities, but those who have not been as active in the program were seeking information for future cycles of the program. The engagement activities held for the 2023 ATP were incredibly encouraging to see our stakeholders' communities continuing to invest in active transportation infrastructure and non-infrastructure programs, and even new regions looking to create new, safer facilities for their community members. Commissioners, this is an informational item presenting the 2023 Active Transportation Program Engagement Summary Report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alika. I know all of us have heard up and down the state how helpful those site visits and workshops were, and so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I know Commissioner Norton had a comment, and then Vice Chair Gardino.
First, I want to commend you on a great infographic representing a huge amount of work. And up and down the state, ATP is all people can talk about. And I think, post-COVID, people are realizing that they've needed so many more opportunities for walking and biking. And so I thank you for your hard work. But just yesterday, the budget was signed and there's $1 billion in additional ATP money coming. And since we're talking about how this is all going to be moving forward, can you just give us a little information in this item or next item about what's going to happen with that funding and how you're going to execute it? Because your subscribers are going to be even more. And I think it'd be very helpful to all the people who are listening to find out a little bit more about what's going to happen with ATP. And again, I commend you and all of your work, because this hands-on opportunity for a lot of people who've not been in the system yet and really want to help make those community-based applications has been noted throughout the state as being a really great face of CTC. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, we're very happy to hear all of the support regarding the engagement that we've held. I will turn it over to Lori to discuss the surplus or the augmentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Norton. I think it might be better, I'll do my presentation and then I'll address that. It might make a lot more sense then.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Chair Eager, and Alika and Lori and the team. Just tremendous job of holding these around the state, increasing it in such an incredible way. And it seems apropos for the ATP program that we refer to these as cycles. So well done on that. I am curious, what does a virtual site visit look like?
That's a great question.
I think so too.
We saw a lot of different variety of site visits, and the core of the site visits really focused on the agencies providing us with an overall view of their region and discussing any sort of obstacles that their community is facing in terms of active transportation. And so they would essentially present their projects to commission staff, and we would work with them and talk through their project and assist and provide any sort of feedback that would help them in the future cycles of the program. And so they provided very detailed maps, any sort of maps renditions of their project. Some provided live videos or pre-recorded videos, which were always really helpful. Any sort of engagement that they've held and conducted with their communities was discussed. And so, like I said, they varied a bit, but that was essentially the core of the virtual site visits. Welcome. Thank you, commissioners.
Did we have any public comment?
No, I see no public comment at this time.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Alika. Thank you. Now we will move on to Lori Walters. Yes, thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. Tab 59 is an information item to provide an update on the 2023 Active Transportation Program, the 6th cycle of the program. This item is a late yellow item that Doug sent out on Friday, June 24th. There's also just a minor update on the change list. The applications for the 2023 ATP were due on June 15th. Normally, staff would give this kind of update at the August meeting to give us more time to get all our information and stats together. But we thought it was critical to give the update at this meeting this cycle in case the budget negotiations were still going on. So I really want to thank Caltrans local assistance ATP staff for working so hard to get all the application information really quickly this cycle. So here are the overall statistics on what was submitted for this cycle. We received 433 regular project applications, 11 quick build project applications. The ATP funding request is overall, it's a little over 3.1 billion. So that's almost $1 billion increase from last cycle. And the total project costs are about 4.3 billion. 401 of the submitted projects benefit disadvantaged communities. 255 of the submitted projects are for Safe Routes to School projects. We received a good mix of project types with applications for 23 plans, 14 non-infrastructure standalone programs, 136 small infrastructure or infrastructure with non-infrastructure elements, 156 medium infrastructure or infrastructure with non-infrastructure elements, and 103 large infrastructure or infrastructure with non-infrastructure elements, and then the 11 quick build projects. 77 of the projects are requesting over 10 million in ATP funds. 33 are requesting over 20 million in ATP funds. So I have a couple of slides to give more context to these numbers. So the first slide shows the increase in project size and request amount over the program's 6 cycles. The graph on the left shows total project costs in blue and ATP requests in red. So in the first cycle of the ATP request amount was about 1 billion, and now it's over 3 billion. The graph on the right shows the average project cost and average ATP requests over the cycles. The first cycle, the average ATP request was 1.3 million, and this cycle it has increased to 7.1 million. There's a very encouraging reason for this increase in the project requests, and then a kind of a negative reason. So on the negative side, costs on all projects have gone way up, particularly in rural areas. But on the positive side, it's that the communities all across the state are looking at building comprehensive active transportation networks. The ATP staff saw this firsthand in all of those site visits that we did that Alika just talked about. There are projects such as the Santa Cruz Rail Trail, the Orange County Loop, the San Diego Bayshore Trail, and the Bay Trail that have been funded for portions of their projects over multiple cycles, as multiple agencies across regions work together to create extensive active transportation facilities. And we're hoping to start seeing applications for that Sacramento Trail that Mr. Jennings talked about yesterday in his welcome. Okay, the next slide shows another effect of the program. The graph on the left shows the trajectory of the program funding. It's gone up over the cycles. The program got a big boost when SB1 passed, and a boost this cycle with the federal IIJA funding, and then hopefully with the budget augmentation. So as a reminder, without the augmentation, we have about 650 million available in funds this cycle, and then with a ATP request of over 3 billion. The graph on the right shows the number of projects we've been able to fund over the 5 cycles. And well, of course, we don't know what we'll be able to fund this cycle. So the spike in cycle 3 was because of SB1. So you can see the funding has gone up, but the number of projects that we can fund has gone down, and that's because of the project sizes. So next steps for the program are starting the evaluation process. From now until about September, the evaluator teams will be scoring the projects. Commission ATP staff will also be evaluating the projects to provide check scores, and Caltrans ATP staff will be assessing the projects for deliverability. The staff recommendations for the statewide and small urban and rural components will be released by October 21st. So I want to thank Beverly, the ATP stats queen, and Alika, the ATP graphics queen, for both helping me on this presentation. This is an information item, and then I'll address your question, Commissioner Norton. So what we plan to do is we will, once the budget's signed and everything, just to make sure, because of what happened last year, we will hold a stakeholder workshop. We're looking, actually, Alika and I were looking at a date like the 13th or 14th of July. We'll hold a workshop with the stakeholders and discuss what they think would be the best use of that 1 billion in funds. So that's the plan right now.
Thank you, Lori.
May I ask one
Yes.
more question? You'd said, I want to get this right. Of the 433 applications, 401 were set to benefit disadvantaged communities.
Yes.
That's tremendous.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
In the metrics you're keeping on these projects, while we're looking at how we're moving towards zero emission, what kind of metrics are you keeping to show all the walking and biking and zero emission travel that entails? And how are you having the applicants keep metrics for this?
So we do that two ways. One is through, after we fund the projects, we try to assess the benefits of what we will be getting. And last cycle, we used the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Benefits Calculator. And Alika did a presentation on that, I think last meeting. Yeah. And we plan to do that again. So that does measure, has a lot of air quality measurements. In the future, we will have the ATP benefit cost tool that will also measure the air quality benefits, but also lots of other factors such as safety and public health. And then as for the real, how things are really playing out, all of the project sponsors, they do project reporting. They report on the progress of their projects, and then they do completion reports and final reports. And in the final reports, they have to submit counts. So they provide before and after counts. And counts are kind of the most direct way to see usage. The problem with them is that a lot of times it takes a while for facilities to really get used to their full extent. And so we're looking at maybe trying to get counts a little bit further on after the project has been built. So those are some of the ways, but we're always trying to come up with different ways, and the Active Transportation Resource Center is always helping us on trying to be able to show the benefits of the program.
Thank you very much. Tremendous work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Liu.
Lori and Alika, my first inclination is saying you're doing your job way too well. But then I thought about it, and I thought if you hadn't established such an outstanding program here, we would never have demonstrated the need for the $1 billion we just got. And so continue to do this because the need is out there, and we have, even though we're not going to be able to fund, I'm predicting, like last time, a lot of really good projects. By being able to show what we have, this backlog of great projects, demonstrates to everyone that we need to find more funding for this. I've joked with some people, half joke with some people that I think electric bikes could actually save the planet. And you guys are through this outstanding program you set up, are making that possible. So continue to do the outreach, continue to do the work, rank these projects, the good one, a lot of good ones won't get funded, and let's use that to try to find some more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Liu.
Thank you, Commissioner Liu. Next year, 2 billion. Yep, going for it. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Christie.
Once again, kudos on the great work that you and your team are doing on the project, this program. One of the things I'm really curious about is whether or not the quick build projects are in fact showing any signs of innovation, problem solving. That's one of the things that, proponents talk about. So it may be too early to answer this question, but perhaps as you get more information about those projects, be very curious.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Grigsby. Yeah, this is the phase 2 of the pilot and the quick builds. We really see quick builds as being a really valuable asset to the program, and we see that they could be used all over the state. We're still struggling a little bit to get the kinds of applications that we are thinking that we should be getting. we're going to keep working on it and keep trying to make the quick build a regular part of the program. And then as we review the projects, we can report more on what we're seeing. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have comments? Public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Great job. Now we have Tim for the next 3 hours.
I know everyone's excited for this section of the agenda. Thank you, commissioners. Tab 60 is an action item for a roadway rehabilitation project on State Route 3 in Siskiyou County, requesting an initial allocation that exceeds the programmed amount by more than 20% for construction capital. The construction capital is programmed for $52,950,000, and Caltrans is requesting $71,797,000 in construction capital and $9,650,000 in construction support. This project is utilizing the construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC delivery method, and the requested allocation for construction capital is based on what is called the agreed to price. This amount is the result of negotiations between Caltrans and an independent cost estimator, consultant, and the CMGC contractor. This increased amount is due to significant increases in unit costs, current oil prices, and limited supply of construction materials. In addition, inflation has proved to be much greater than standard escalation rates used to estimate costs for this project. Some of the major increases are related to concrete related items, drainage items, mobilization, and asphalt. Before making a recommendation, you will see a trend today regarding bid prices, actually regarding supplemental funds requested due to bid prices. CTC staff will be asking Caltrans to speak at a future meeting or project delivery workshop regarding how they are monitoring the costs, how they're making changes to address them, and how these increased costs could impact meeting performance targets. Regarding tab 60, staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Any commissioners have comments, questions? Certainly we do appreciate in the future having Caltrans talk to us about what these additional costs are going to be ahead of time. Yes, Director Weiss.
And Tim, in talking about this at a project delivery workshop, it would be good to have Caltrans talk about when in going out and doing a CMGC, do they decide to go out for a bid and not go with the CMGC contractor? What are the guidelines for that? I just want to make sure that like every time we're getting a cost increase with CMGC, which we're seeing quite a few, and this is also a big thing on the Caltrans's efficiencies report. So I'm not sure how those two things balance out, but if we're seeing these cost increases, when do we go and say, this is too much, we need to go out for a bid?
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion for tab 60.
So moved.
Was that Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Liu, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 61.
Commissioners, tab 61 is an action item for a roadway preservation project on State Route 145 in Madera County, requesting an initial allocation that exceeds the programmed amount by more than 20% for the plan specifications and estimate phase. Please note there's a yellow replacement book item as well as changes on a pink handout to include the vote box as an attachment, as noted on the change list. During the project approval and environmental document phase, a scope change occurred when $4 million of construction capital was amended into the project from the 2020 SHOP Complete Streets Reservation. An amendment was approved in September of 2022 to add additional funds to the unallocated phases. While the PS&E phase was not yet allocated, additional funding could not be added to accommodate the increased effort needed to incorporate the additional complete street scope because the project was already in the year of delivery for this phase. In this case, this initial allocation is the appropriate time to request the necessary additional funding. The PSNE phase was originally programmed for $1,275,000. Caltrans is requesting an allocation of $2,887,000, which is an increase of $1,612,000. This increase is related to all aspects of incorporating the additional complete streets elements into the project design. Staff has reviewed this project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Davis, do I have a second? Commissioner Bradshaw, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 62.
Tab 62 is an action item for a safety improvement project on State Route 61, 123, and 185 in Alameda County that is requesting $110,000 in supplemental funds for the plan specification and estimate phase. Please note some changes to the book item as identified on the change list. During the project approval environmental document phase, utility conflicts were identified as a construction risk. To mitigate risk during construction and to avoid future delays, Caltrans verified underground utilities and redesigned traffic control elements to avoid utility conflicts. This effort required multiple field visits and other efforts above what was anticipated and impacted the PSNE support resources. The project is expected to complete design very soon. The requested supplemental funds will be used to complete the remaining PSNE activities to award the project. Staff has reviewed the project and request and recommends approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions, comments? Motion?
So moved.
Was that Commissioner Davis?
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Norton, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 63.
Tab 63 is an action item for a long lead bridge rehabilitation project for the Coronado Bridge on State Route 75 in San Diego County that is requesting $10,900,000 in supplemental funds for the project approval and environmental document phase. The environmental phase of the Coronado Bridge Foundation Retrofit Project started in 2016 and focused on the preliminary structural analysis and feasibility studies. During the October 22 CTC meeting, a 78-month expenditure time extension was approved for this project with a deadline of December of 2026. While working with Caltrans to better understand this supplemental funds request, Commission staff learned that this phase was divided into 3 parts, with part 1 now being complete. With this supplemental funds request being almost $11 million and the project phase already going on for almost 6 years, Commission staff asked Caltrans to prepare a supplemental scoping document to provide a formalized basis of the remaining work needed to complete the phase that can be referred to as part of the supplemental funds request. In addition, to align with SHOP guidelines, Commission staff asked Caltrans to request all funding necessary to complete the PA&ED phase instead of requesting multiple supplemental allocations to complete the work. At a meeting this week, Commission staff met with Caltrans and have agreed to an alternative strategy from what is currently described in the book item, and Commission staff proposes the following recommendation. 1, revise the supplemental funds request today to be $150,000. This funding will be added to whatever funds are remaining for the purposes of completing a supplemental scoping document and continue working on the phase until a future supplemental funds request can be approved. Second, ask Caltrans to schedule a project briefing with the Commission to provide more detailed information on the project and the work needed to complete the PA&ED phase. And lastly, ask Caltrans to resubmit the supplemental funds request to a future CTC meeting after completing the supplemental scoping document. Commission staff recommends approving this supplemental allocation with a modified amount of $150,000.
That's a little bit different than what's. We appreciate that. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Any commissioners have comments or questions? Director Weiss.
You know, the Coronado Bridge used to have a toll on it. That toll was taken off in, I believe, 2000 because it was no longer cost effective to have toll collectors there. The toll was 50 cents. Given the change in technology, is Caltrans, as a part of the environmental process, looking at reinstituting tolls on the bridge to fund this work.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, Director Weiss, for the question. Right now in the environmental document, we're focusing on the technical aspects of the seismic retrofit of the bridge. We're not focusing on the financial strategy, potentially to finance the capital construction, but that is something that we can look at in the future. Obviously, bringing back the tolls would bring in equity studies and all sorts of other issues as well. So right now we're focusing on what the bridge needs. The bridge is over 50 years old. The foundations in the bay have never been retrofitted. We need to bring them up to current seismic standards. We've determined that in the past few years, since 2016, with 2 global seismic analysis models that we run, as well as some piles that we reconstructed. The size of this room actually in the UCSD lab, and we tested these piles in any way possible. And we've determined that we have to go back and do that. We need to narrow down what the final retrofit strategy is, what the environmental impacts are, and then we can, once we determine the total cost of the capital cost, we can start talking about the financial strategy, possibly including bringing back tolling.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Safety first. At the 150,000 request. All those in favor? Opposed?
Madam Chair, who made the second?
Commissioner Bradshaw? Motion carries. 64.
Tab 64 is an action item for a bridge replacement project requesting $21,880,000 in supplemental funds to award the contract. In March of 2022, the department advertised the contract and held a bid opening in May of 22. The contract received 3 bids, of which the lowest bid is 37% above the engineer's estimate. The cost increases on this project are largely attributed to the current state of the economy, with the supply shortages, inflation, and high fuel prices. The department interviewed all bidders, and they cited that the uncertainty of material prices as a major factor impacting the bids for concrete, steel, hot mix asphalt, and labor supply. Caltrans feels this request for supplemental funds is in the best interest of the state. It will allow the award of the project to the lowest responsive bidder and avoid delays in implementing this important bridge replacement project and extra cost to the department if the project has to be repackaged and or re-advertised. Caltrans, our staff, has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval.
Caltrans probably did too.
I think they did.
Okay. Public comment?
No public comment.
Any comments from commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
So moved to approve.
Bradshaw, second. Lou, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Continuing on this trend, tab 65 is an action item for a minor A transportation management system project requesting $315,000 in supplemental funds to award the contract. In April of 2022, Caltrans advertised the contract, held the bid opening, and the contract received 3 bids, of which the lowest bid is 32% above the engineer's estimate. The department interviewed all bidders to discuss the discrepancy in item unit costs, and the contractor cited uncertainty of fuel and material prices as the major factors impacting bids. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions, comments? Motion?
Second.
That was Davis and Bradshaw. Yes? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 66.
Tab 66 is an action item for a minor A drainage restoration project requesting $1,350,000 in supplemental funds to award the contract. In March of 22, Caltrans advertised the contract and held the bid opening in April. The contract received 4 bids, of which the lowest bid is 116% above the engineer's estimate. The contractor cited uncertainty of fuel and material prices as the major factors impacting the bids. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval of this item.
Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions? Yes, Commissioner Davis.
So the uncertainty is out there. The uncertainty is out there. We all know it, understand it. We see it every day in these bids. So projects that are being bid today, what conversations are Caltrans addressing with the low bidder, the next bidder, the third bidder to talk about whether they've created they put that value of that uncertainty in these numbers so that we're not getting sort of artificially low bids now, knowing that they can come back in 2 years and say, hey, there's all this stuff going on and we need more money. I mean, I understand why we're doing it. I get it. But what are we doing to make sure that maybe we don't potentially see another 420% proposed increase in the future? I'm just curious what those conversations are in the bid room or the discussion with the low bidders.
I could have Caltrans come up to speak on this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Commissioner Davis, to your answer, my name's Dave Moore. I'm the District 2 Director, so have a handful of these cost increases that we're dealing with right now. I can't speak for the department as a whole, but I can tell you that as we're having these conversations with contractors, we typically chase bids up as prices go up, and we typically chase bids down as prices go down. It's a ebb and flow environment. We went through this 3 or 4 years ago where we had sharp increases, and unfortunately, in a very rural district with very rural locations we sometimes see those increases sharper in those periods. So in the case of this particular project, it's a very rural section of the district. Its accessibility is a little bit more difficult. In this case, we also had this route closed for a good period of time last summer due to fires that also add that uncertainty into contractors out there. Typically, it takes about 4 months from the time that we finalize a project, we put an engineer's estimate together, to the time that we actually go to the point that we could award a project after it's been our design completed, come here for a vote for an allocation, go through the process, and then we open bids. So when we chase those up, that time period, typically when we start seeing it, we got 4 months of projects in the pipeline. And so we get into the cycle. We are working with contractors, find ways to do things to minimize those impacts. In this particular case, you'll see an item 68, which is in the neighboring proximity of this project. They had very similar scopes, 2 separate projects. We're hoping that economy of scale, that we could get to the same contractor, maybe to get both projects to help save on some of those costs. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case when we looked at the low bidders on these. We had different low bidders on the 2 projects. So I know it doesn't really answer your question. I do think it's an opportunity if we have a project delivery workshop in August to have some further discussions about how we're working with contractors and how we deal with these spikes in prices, and as well as how we deal with it when we go on the downside. Because typically now, we start estimating projects higher. When we go downside, we're leaving all that money on the table as well too, and not putting it to use. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I want to make clear, I wasn't picking on the rural areas. I get even the different dynamics that you're dealing with up there, but I still think there needs to be some sort of a defined discussion to make sure that they're not artificially, submitting some lower numbers, knowing that they're going to be able to come back later and get money. I'm not sure how you do that, but I think it's important that it get done. I mean, I'm used to dealing with building contractors years and years ago in a different job where we had specific contractors we knew were looking for the gray areas in the document so that they knew what change orders they were going to submit, even with their bids, after they were awarded the job. So the 4 million elementary, no, they don't cost $4 million anymore. So that's how long ago this was. So the $4 million elementary school that could have went to a bidder who bid it the right way at 5.5 million, ended up costing $8 million. So, you know, I'm not trying to pick on our contractors. We have great partner contractors that we work with as organizations. But I think, you know, there's a limited amount of money we have here. And so we need to be really smart about how we're dealing with how we spend this money.
Correct. And we do go through a lengthy award process where we do evaluate those bids and look for those discrepancies or inconsistencies, you know, to look for that stuff. And a lot of times there are a lot of cases out there where we don't award to the lowest responsible bidder or lowest bidder because we find some of those discrepancies. And Mike, you want to maybe speak on a statewide basis?
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Mike Keever, Chief Deputy Director for Caltrans. So with regard to these projects, and Tim, I think, explained it pretty well. In this case, these are the supplementals to awards. So the bidders have not yet been awarded these contracts. So these aren't change orders that we're doing here. So these are decisions being made based on the competitive marketplace, the lowest bid, the analysis of that bid, whether or not reflective of the lowest bids for the current market prices, we should award these contracts. Once they're under contract with us, they're held to these bids. There won't be change orders based on commodity prices changing, other than in one particular case, we do have specifications that are tied to oil prices and our asphalt prices. But that's, again, part of the contract. And so right now, as District Director Moore is saying, at the time of some of these estimates, so this is Caltrans' forecast of what these bids will be. For instance, there was no war in Ukraine at that time, right? A lot has changed since Caltrans did their engineer's estimate. And so that lag sometimes leads to some time before we can catch up to the volatility of what's happening in the marketplace.
Thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve item 66. Davis and Bradshaw, the team of Davis and Bradshaw have now motioned in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 67.
Tab 67 is an action item for a minor A maintenance facility project requesting $578,000 in supplemental funds to award the contract. In April, the department advertised the contract and held bid opening in May. The contract received 3 bids, of which the lowest responsive bidder is 67% above the engineer's estimate. The majority of the project cost increase is for the steel building material. The department analyzed and interviewed all bidders, and the costs of providing and installing the steel building have dramatically risen higher than anticipated between the time of the engineer's estimate in January of 22 when the bids were opened in May. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval of this item.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? Have a motion?
I actually have a quick comment.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
I just wanted to share, my day job for the Carpenters Union and working closely with developers, private markets, and then builders. We are seeing the same kind of escalator in the private market of the materials. I mean, sometimes 300, 400, 500%. Then there's a delay, and then it's actually getting the materials, which adds another 10, 20% on it just consistently. Just wanted to share with the public when we look across this, it's not just the state projects. We're seeing it, at least I'm seeing it every day. So just want to make that comment.
Thank you. And Commissioner Liu, you made the motion? Yes? Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Norton, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 68.
Tab 68 is an action item for a minor A drainage restoration project requesting $1,171,000 in supplemental funds to award the contract. In March of 22, the department advertised the contract and held bid opening in April. The contract received 4 bids, of which the lowest bid was 86.3% above the engineer's estimate. The contractor cited uncertainty of fuel and material prices as the major factors impacting the bids. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioners, questions? Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, we get a break from Tim.
Yes, thought we would give Tim a break, a little breather there, huh? Okay, Commissioners, tab 69 is an action item. This is a supplemental funds request to award for the Coordinated Infrastructure Project, the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry Segment 3A project. This is the site preparation segment that includes earthwork and drainage. This needs to be done prior to the actual construction of the new Port of Entry, the Otay Mesa Port of Entry. In April 2022, the department advertised the contract and held bid opening in May 2022. The contract received 9 bids. The lowest was 52.8% above the engineer's estimate. The 8 remaining bids ranged from 65% to 163% over the engineer's estimate. The primary factors for the increase is materials costs, supply chain disruptions, and labor shortage. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval.
Thank you, Teresa. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner comments? Questions? Motions? Moved by Davis, second by Norton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Teresa. Back to our friend Tim.
Thank you. Tab 70 is an action item for a combined funded roadway rehabilitation high occupancy vehicle lane project on Interstate 5 in Sacramento County, requesting $18 million in supplemental funds to complete construction. The main reason for this supplemental funds request is to pay for a contract change order to upgrade a 1-mile segment of median barrier to meet new standards. Caltrans stated that upgrading the median barrier is approximately $2.9 million. However, to accommodate the upgraded barrier, it will require reconstruction of the existing pavement, modification of drainage, modification of electrical work and fiber optic conduits, and the upgrading of overhead signs. The cost of this part of the work is approximately $15 million. Caltrans said this additional scope was originally planned for the project, but it was removed due to the barrier standards necessary not being available for this segment of the project, and Caltrans did not want to delay the delivery of the project while the plans were developed. After the plans were developed, Caltrans decided to incorporate the scope and authorize the contractor to do the work with the understanding they will be able to utilize its delegated G12 allocation adjustment authority to augment the project budget and pay for the new scope. Caltrans received all the internal approvals to receive the G12 budget augmentation. However, due to the project being jointly funded, Commission staff is to provide concurrence on the G12 augmentations to assure proportionality is being applied to the cost increases with the other funding programs. Commission staff reviewed the G12 documentation and determined this work, the proposed work, was not consistent with the intent and purpose of the delegated authority. It is to be used for the advertisement, award, and completion of a contract, not to add scope to a contract that is different from what was presented to the Commission for an allocation. Caltrans made the assumption of the new work could be paid for, executed the contract change order, and the work is currently underway or potentially completed. With no delegated G12 funding, a supplemental allocation from the Commission is necessary to pay for the new scope. While Commission staff has some concerns regarding the appropriateness of this new scope as it relates to state contract law, Commission staff does not feel the contractor should be penalized for Caltrans oversight. Due to the misunderstanding of the intent and use of the delegated G12 authority, Commission staff will be proposing revisions to the G12 resolution to provide more clarity regarding its expected use and to give the Commission the ability to provide additional oversight on projects utilizing G12 funds. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval of this item.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
So you believe that the steps that you have in place now will hopefully prevent this in the future?
Like, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the resolution to provide some additional clarity so that we can, to help to educate the Caltrans staff to understand the intent of it so that we will avoid this in the future. That's correct.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from, yes, Director Tavares?
Thank you, Chair Ager. Caltrans looks forward to working very closely with commission staff to upgrade these G12 provisions and make them clearer. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd make the motion and just want to thank Tim and his staff for his diligence and paying attention to this the way that you do. And hopefully you'll come to us with a resolution that'll, stop this from happening moving forward. And we would, I'm sure, be willing to approve that at the time, but I make the motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Davis and Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tim. 71.
Tab 71 is an action item for a stormwater mitigation project requesting $400,000 in supplemental funds to complete construction. This supplemental funds request is a similar situation as what was just described in tab 70. The main reason for the supplemental funds request is to pay for a contract change order for scope that was originally in the project, removed from the project prior to receiving the construction allocation from the commission, and then added back into the contract during construction. Caltrans did this with the understanding they would be able to utilize its delegated G12 allocation adjustment authority to augment the project budget and pay for the new scope. In this case, Caltrans removed the rehabilitation of 2 culverts during the plan specification and estimates phase and brought them back into the contract through a contract change order. Similar to the project in tab 70, adding the new scope to a contract during construction is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the delegated G12 authority. Since Caltrans assumed they would be able to use the funds to pay for the new scope, the CCO was executed and the work is currently underway or already completed. As mentioned on the prior project, with no delegated G12 funding, a supplemental allocation from the commission is necessary to pay for the new scope. And while commission staff has some concerns regarding the appropriateness of adding this new scope, commission staff does not feel the contractor should be penalized for Caltrans oversight. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
We look forward to Director Tavares addressing these in the future. Thank you. Do we have any commissioner comment or questions? And I will entertain a motion to accept, approve.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Bradshaw, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Grisby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 72.
Tab 72 is an action item for combined funding pavement rehabilitation and high occupancy vehicle lane project on Interstate 10 in Los Angeles County, requesting $582,000 in construction support and $4,095,000 of construction capital and supplemental funds to close out construction. Please note there is a yellow replacement book item as noted on the change list. The project realized cost increases due to delays in utility relocations and contract change orders to address differing site conditions, discovery of buried asbestos pipes, replacing additional damaged concrete slabs for traffic safety, additional site management, and maintaining traffic. This project has recently completed and has met the construction acceptance milestone on June 17th of this year. These supplemental funds will be used to pay all remaining contract change orders and any outstanding claims to close out construction. Commission staff questioned the proportionality of the combined funding and the proportionality of the cost increases to be paid for by each funding program. Caltrans met with commission staff and presented information to document the basis of the proportionality of the increases and assured commission staff the increases have been applied appropriately per fund type. With the project being completed a few weeks ago, and this supplemental fund request giving the project the funding necessary to close out the project, this project will be on track to close out soon. The book item shows the combined funding for construction support to complete construction is about $1.1 million. That amount seems high for a project that has completed construction activities. I would like to ask Caltrans to come up and discuss the basis of the requested amount of construction support.
Good morning, Chair Eager, Commissioners, Director Weiss, Director Tavares. I'm Gloria Roberts. I'm the District 7 Acting Director. And I'd like to answer Mr. Sobelman's question in regards to the what you feel is the proportionality split of the shop request. And so when we initially, being that this is a partnership project with our local funding partner, at the time that we requested for their share of the supplemental fund request, we had calculated a proportionality split by the original allocation as well as the type of work. And so at that time, when the Metro Board did approve the supplemental from their share in April, we had anticipated that the project would actually not finish until early 2023. Since then, in an effort to try to close out this project and reduce further escalation costs, we were actually able to complete construction in earlier this month. And so we actually anticipate that the state shop support share will be less than what's being printed in the book item. And so we do expect that the actual expenditures will be less than the $582,000.
So how much less? What are we talking about?
We're thinking about half, so about 290.
So why not request what you think you really need?
Initially, when we were still preparing the book items, we were not sure we would be able to close out the project in June. And so to keep the spirit of the partnership of the numbers being consistent in what we presented to Metro, we wanted to present the same number here. And as we work towards completing this project, this is when we decided that we were not, the actual expenditures of what we're requesting would be less.
So are you recommending that we modify the request to 290,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So staff has reviewed the project and the request, and based on the new request for construction support of 290,000, staff recommends approval of this item.
Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
Second.
As amended to the 290, correct? Yes, okay, that would be Davis and Norton. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Tab 73.
Tab 73 is an action item for combined funding pavement rehabilitation, high occupancy vehicle lane project on Interstate 10 in the city of Baldwin Park and West Covina, requesting $16,104,000 in supplemental funds for construction capital to close out construction. Please note there's a yellow replacement book item as noted on the change list. Increased costs were incurred due to right-of-way and utility relocation delays and the contractor encountering differing site conditions. Additional traffic control and site management was needed due to these delays. Construction began in June of 2014, and the project is now complete as it reached the construction contract acceptance milestone in January of 22. The contractor has filed claims for inefficiencies and escalation of costs for materials, labor, and equipment relating to the delays during the project. The project also experienced delays with relocation of power lines at multiple locations that require the contractor and their subcontractor to skip around to perform the work. An additional delay occurred when an underground power line was discovered that required relocation. The supplemental funds of $13,916,000 in SHOP and $2,188,000 in STIP will be combined with the remaining budget and the other funding programs to be used to pay outstanding claims to close out construction. Commission staff questioned the proportionality of the combined funding and the proportionality of the cost increases to be paid for by each funding program. Caltrans met with Commission staff and presented information to document the basis of the proportionality of the increases and assured Commission staff the increases have been applied appropriately per fund type. Staff has reviewed the project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
I do believe we do have virtual attendees who do intend to comment on this item. If you wish to do so, please use the virtual hand raise feature so I can unmute you.
We were told someone from LA Metro wanted to make a comment, but we're not seeing a hand raised at this point.
They have 30 seconds to raise their hand.
We are in the process of getting that hand raised, just letting you know, from District 7 HQ here in LA.
Looks like you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, we do. We have Ernesto Chavez looking to comment at this time. Ernesto, you're now muted and free to comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Ernesto Chavez, I'm with LA Metro. I'm an interim senior executive officer of Roads and Highways. Thank you for the opportunity to address this item. Metro strongly supports the department's request for supplemental funds to close out the construction contract on this project. As you heard in the previous items, the Metro board last April 28th approved the additional 21.7 million in funding for our proportional share of the closeout costs for both tab 72 and 73. So I'm just here to express my support and to urge you to approve supplemental funding for the projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I think he said he supported it. Any other public comment?
I see no other public comment at this time.
Thank you. Any commissioners' comments? I will entertain a motion. Oh, we have another one? Nope. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have Lou and Martinez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to John and tab 74.
Great. Tab 74 is an action item to approve amendments to the 2022 SHOP. These SHOP amendments will add 12 new projects to the 2022 SHOP and will also revise 99 projects that are currently programmed in the 2022 SHOP. Of the 12 new projects, 9 of them are major damage projects that are using the major damage reservation. 2 of them are safety projects that are using the collision reduction reservation, and 1 is a relinquishment project using the mandates reservation. This is a different relinquishment project than what we saw yesterday. The 99.
You don't have to go there again.
The 99 revised projects include various changes to increase or decrease project costs and outputs, as well as changes to accelerate or delay delivery schedules. 99 is higher than we typically see, but June is the last time to change projects before next fiscal year. So June is always typically a little bit higher than other months. And these changes are a necessary and proactive part of managing the SHOP program to realign the scope and costs and schedules to meet the program's objectives and goals. Staff has reviewed these amendments and finds that they're consistent with the SHOP guidelines and recommends approval.
Thank you, John. Do we have any public comment?
I do not see any public comment at this time.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I did notice on 4 and 8, which is part of the new amendment, which is 4 is Oakland and then 8 is Long Beach. And the reason why I'm referencing those, because it has to do with homelessness and the added cost, right? And the damage that is happening. And when you look at Oakland, it's massive bridge, disrepair from a fire damage. It's over 200 abandoned vehicles that are leaking oil and other fluids that are going into our waterways. I could go on and on specifically with Oakland, and then you look at Long Beach, which is again repair of the separation of the bridge, and again massive damage because of fires, and obviously the unhoused community is using that for shelter. I'm sure that when we started these SHOP guidelines or these funding it's not supposed to be used, right, specifically for unhoused and the causes that are happening to the infrastructure throughout our bridges and our highway system. And so my question to you is that I'm sure one or both of these are coming from the damage reserve fund. How much do we typically have in that fund, and how much have we spent thus far because of this homeless crisis? I don't think we talk enough about this and the additional costs that we're spending, not only for our water, issues, and number two, the damage and fire to our infrastructure, and to our, and more importantly, to the bridges that we just talked about earlier, that we're trying to fix, but because of the unhoused community, it's causing havoc on the system.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have two thoughts on that. One of them is we are so the reservation works on a fiscal year basis, and at the October CTC, what we typically come in with is like a closeout report on the reservation from the previous year. And I think it'd be a great idea if what staff can do is look at all the projects that came in with Caltrans. Always works very closely with us on that, and they show us the projects that came in, and we can look at all the homelessness major damage projects and see what that total added up to. The reservation is typically in the $500 million range over a year, and so we can see of that amount how much were these homelessness projects. I think it would be a great thing to give us some perspective. And then my second thought is Caltrans recently, within the last few months, has been changing their policy on how they deal with these things so that they're going to start funding these out of the 131, which is a different reservation program. And what they're trying to incentivize is districts to sort of prioritize the funding on these projects. And I think they don't know the perfect solution, but that's their one step in the right direction to see how they can kind of get their arms around this issue.
Well, thank you, Jay. And I know obviously Director Travares is well aware of what's going on. And I only mention this because this funding that we have is not typically to be addressing the unhoused community. And I do believe our governor and our legislature needs to be aware of that as we continue to, be strapped for funds and other projects, and we're using these dollars because of the impact of the unhoused community. And what can we do with cities and counties, if we're having to pay these costs because they're not addressing this issue? We need to figure out different ways of how we're going to be able to continue to use these funds for what they were intended for.
And the perfect time to partner with other agencies, correct? Yes. So as you look at doing that analysis of what was spent in the past and we project what's going to be needed in the future, that might be the time to bring in some of those other agencies that deal with the unhoused. So thank you so much for bringing that up. With that, I think I asked for public comment already, correct?
Yes, and there's still no public comment.
Motion to approve, Martinez.
Martinez, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are at tab 75. Lori.
Yes, Commissioners, tab 75 is an action item to adopt the 2023 Active Transportation Program Regional Guidelines for 7 metropolitan planning organizations, which are the Fresno Council of Governments, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, San Diego Association of Governments, San Joaquin Council of Governments, Southern California Association of Governments, Tahoe Metropolitan Planning Organization, and Tulare County Association of Governments. The Commission adopted the statewide 2023 Active Transportation Program Guidelines at the March 2022 meeting. The Commission also adopted the Metropolitan Transportation Commission Guidelines at that meeting. Senate Bill 99 allows the Commission to adopt guidelines proposed by MPOs for administering the regional competitive components of the ATP. Regional guidelines must be consistent with the state guidelines, but the MPOs do have some discretion in certain areas. For example, they may issue a supplemental call for projects, and they can adjust project selection criteria and weighting. Regional guidelines allow the MPOs to encourage projects that further regional priorities. The book item provides details on how each MPO tailored their guidelines to meet their regional priorities, but just to give you one example, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments scores on additional criteria such as alignment with local economic prosperity goals and identification of the project in the Sacramento Regional Parks and Trails Strategic Development Plan. Staff has reviewed each MPO's regional guidelines and finds them consistent with the statewide guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the 2023 Active Transportation Program guidelines for the MPOs that I went over at the beginning.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Have any questions or comments from commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
I think it was Commissioner Davis, yes? And Grisby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are on tab 76.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 76 is an action item to amend the Short Line Railroad Improvement Program. The recommended amendments will separate the Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Freight Rail Improvements Project in Sonoma County into 2 phases and redistribute program funds between the 2 program phases, the Black Point Bridge Repair and the Freight Spurs Project. The Black Point Bridge Repair Project will repair the Black Point Bridge over the Petaluma River, stabilizing a critical phase of the east-west Brazos branch, connecting the Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Mainline to the National Rail Network. The Freight Spurs Project will support the stabilization and connection of the Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Mainline to the National Rail Network, east to west, by upgrading 2 rail spurs and constructing a new rail spur along the Sonoma-Marin Area Rail Transit Mainline. Staff has reviewed these amendment requests, and they are consistent with the Short Line Railroad Improvement Program guidelines and policies. Staff recommends for your approval. If there are no other questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 77.
Commissioners, tab 77 is an action item to amend the 2020 Local Partnership Competitive Program to separate the Golden State Corridor Infrastructure Improvements and Economic Development Project in Fresno County into the Phase 1 segment and the Phase 2 segment, and to reprogram the Local Partnership Competitive Program funding in the amount of $7 million to the Phase 1 segment. The Fresno County Transportation Authority is requesting to deliver the scope under 2 contracts in order to meet Union Pacific Railroad requirements, as well as the Commission's timely use of funds policies. The work under Phase 1 will start first to allow additional time to coordinate with partners and secure the necessary permits for Phase 2. In addition, the project scope is being updated to accommodate Union Pacific Railroad's and the California Public Utility Commission's requests for additional improvements. The increased scope includes additional sidewalk and curb ramp installation, intersection improvements, new signals, modifications to existing signals, and traffic signal interconnection. The project will still fully rehabilitate the pavement, increase safety and accessibility at intersections, and improve safety for all modes. This amendment is consistent with the Local Partnership Program guidelines and policies, and staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner comments or questions?
Move approval.
Vice Chair Gardino, and
That was
I
Jay.
think it was Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 78. Anya?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, tab 78 is an action item to amend the Local Partnership Formulaic Program. The 5 recommended amendments will add 4 projects and separate one existing project into 2 segments. This action will leave $80 million of the 2020 Local Partnership Formulaic Program funding available for programming through June 30th, 2023. Staff has reviewed these amendment requests, and they are consistent with the Local Partnership Program guidelines and policies. Staff recommends your approval.
Great, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment.
Comments from commissioners?
Move approval.
Vice Chair Gardino, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 79.
Commissioners, tab 79 is an action item to approve a project scope amendment for the City of Sacramento's Downtown Sacramento Grid 3.0 Mobility Project in the 2018 Local Partnership Competitive Program. Under the originally approved scope, the construction phase consists of reconfiguring the existing roadways to accommodate protected bikeways and to improve traffic circulation. I will now provide additional detail for the proposed scope change. First, some of the improvements on 5th Street and 9th Street were previously completed as part of a recent utility project. That scope is being removed from this project, and the funds saved will be used to add new scope to the project. Next, due to concerns from the Union Pacific Railroad on the project plans concerning safety, potential queuing issues, and jeopardizing the city's quiet zone designation, the two-way conversion plan on I Street was changed to maintain the one-way directionality. Under the proposed scope, the one-way directionality will include the installation of new Class 4 bikeways or buffered Class 2 bike lanes on the blocks in which parking separated Class 4 bikeways are not feasible. Lastly, the new scope plan includes additional work being performed on Q Street, 19th Street, and 20th Street. This additional work is being financed through savings from the scope that was previously completed and new funding that the city received from the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission and an Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant. Caltrans performed a thorough review and analysis of the revised scope and supports the scope change because the project outputs and benefits will increase, with no negative impacts to the overall project budget or schedule. Commission staff concurs with Caltrans's analysis. Staff recommends your approval of the scope amendment as it is consistent with the Local Partnership Program guidelines.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I think it was Bradshaw and Davis. Yes. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will move on to number 82. John?
Yes, tab 82 is an action item for shop construction allocations. As noted on the change list, there is a small change to the post miles on project number 16. This item will allocate $351,551,000 for 37 shop projects. These 37 projects will improve 31 bridges, 81 lane miles of pavement, 210 culverts, 48 TMS elements, and many other important improvements that help preserve and protect the state highway system. I wanted to just pick out a couple highlights since there's so many projects and such a large dollar value. The largest of these 37 allocations is a $37,017,000 allocation for a pavement rehabilitation project on State Route 74 in Riverside County. And a couple local highlights, there are 2 Sacramento County allocations in here. The total of those 2 is $15,699,000. And both of them are bridge projects. One will rehabilitate a poor condition bridge on State Route 12 in Rio Vista, and one will strengthen a bridge on Interstate 5 in the city of Sacramento to improve freight mobility for permit loads. So with those highlights, staff has reviewed all 37 of these allocations and recommends approval of this request.
Thank you, John. Do we have public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Bradshaw moves. Do I have a second? Second Martinez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 83.
Tab 83 is an action item for shop pre-construction support allocations. This item will allocate $294,829,000 for 205 shop pre-construction phases for PNED, PS&E, and right-of-way support. Staff has reviewed this allocation request and recommends approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is that Commissioner Bradshaw? Do I have a second? Second Martinez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 84.
Okay, 84 is an action item to allocate $13,991,000 for the right-of-way capital phase for a shop pavement preservation project on Interstate 10 in Riverside County. This project is coming for an individual right-of-way capital allocation instead of being funded through the annual allocation because CTC Resolution G1901 requires projects with right-of-way capital of $10 million or more to receive an individual allocation from the commission. This is so that we can provide a higher oversight on some of the higher dollar projects. Staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Do we have any questions from commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Davis and Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think we're going to take a break here, John. So we will be back in 18 minutes so people can check out if they need to. We'll be back at 11:10. Thank you.
You're unmuted.
That was
I'm
my
trying to, turn it off, turn it off. Yeah, it wasn't off. It wasn't off.
This is on.
Okay. See if the other mic, something else is on.
Two ways. And those items are coming up very quick because the rest of the applications that we has.
I'm not seeing the raised hand.
He said it's not seeing the raised hand.
Let's see. I'm looking at. Hold on. Are you on the phone with somebody? You trying to fix it or are you on the phone with somebody? Okay, so hold on. Okay. All right, let me do this part. Can't have 5 people fixing it. Let me see. Okay, I turned down the volume. Is there speaker sounds in here? Turn the speakers off, please. We don't need speakers. There you go. All right, that's what it was. We don't need the speakers because it's just a few people here. So now, okay, cool. Let me talk with him, let him know I'm trying to try it. And then I think overall, Jessica.
We're modern now. You know. Exactly. Yeah, I know. Seriously. Yeah, Lynette will be happy. She appreciates you guys. Yeah, I will. No, I just text her right now. No, I'm gonna text her right now. Our program I see.
So.
Jessica, turned down the speaker. They got rid of the microphone. It was just extra technology.
Yeah.
I have a quick question though. So when.
I think that's what I'm going to, I'll go ahead.
Oh, no,
I was going to mention in the huddle, like, before the huddle, I was going to say, I think we can use the microphone if you want to. I don't know if that helps.
No,
There's
okay.
anyone else here, right?
No, it's just a here.
Okay,
As
so,
long as they can hear.
so let's leave the microphones off. Let's try to see if we can talk to this thing.
Okay.
Because this was already on.
Yeah.
There's like a reverb.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure that.
So we just have to, what do you call it? When he talks, where does he press?
You don't have to press anything. They're actually listening to us now, I think. So they're on a return at 11:10. So
Yeah, exactly.
what we could do, we can mute, but it's okay.
The only thing
Mute
is
is
she
like right.
needs to speak throughout the meeting. He's only going to be speaking at a certain point.
Correct.
So then she grabs the microphone. Okay. Oh, she's gonna be
Through
speaking
her
through.
computer,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah.
And nothing's changed on that. I just took a look to see if there was like some interference with
okay,
that one.
okay.
So everything was fine.
Okay.
This one's fine as far as the sound and the mic, so that should be good.
Okay.
And since he doesn't need, there's not a large audience right now for this one, then he can just, we don't need to keep the this one on, and also probably use the mic, so you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm supposed to be back here because I'm gonna be managing the big one at 1 o'clock or something like that. There's another one.
I didn't know about.
There's another meeting today?
Oh, that I'm unaware of.
Oh,
I know this one
okay.
ends at 1.
This one ends at 1.
Okay.
And the yesterday started at 1.
Oh, okay. Oh, so,
Yeah, yesterday it started at 1 to 5 p.m.
oh, okay, got it.
And so
Okay.
it's 9 to 1 p.m.
Okay. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm thinking I had to be here at 1. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Suzanne, we just fixed it. Archie Brown from IT. Yeah, we got rid of two
Good seeing you, good
speakers
seeing you.
and two microphones. It was
It was
extra
just,
technology that wasn't
speakers.
needed, that was creating interference.
That's, you want to test it when you get a chance?
Okay, so can you ensure for 139?
Yes,
Okay.
He raised his
139.
hand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and because it was terrible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry about
Okay.
that. So
Everything's
we fixed it. It's under control now. Okay, Susan. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry about that.
Bye.
Where is I still don't see the raised hand feature.
Which one you think?
There's supposed to be a raised hand. Oh, this
Oh,
is
you see
it.
Yeah, there you go.
Is this it?
Mhm. Do you need a mouse? Is it easier for you to work with a mouse too, or?
It's just
It should be
messed
okay.
up one
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
you're
And
not
we don't-
listening
and
to me. I would.
So what
yeah.
happened, we turned off this microphone. We don't need it because it's just you. And then the other thing we turned off was the surround sound speakers.
Okay.
This has a microphone too. So when you were talking in this one, it was like, so
Oh,
we turned,
okay.
and that's all that board right there.
Got
We
it,
turned that
okay.
off. So you should be able to be okay now. I think the mic is still open.
Yeah,
And then I think raised
that's the
hand is
raised
there.
hand feature. Okay.
And I'll be right here until you guys start rolling again. And then, okay, 11:10. So I'll be here, so we'll be able to see how you roll and things.
Thank you, Archie. Oh,
I
thank
gotta
you.
get on the
Got it,
phone.
okay.
I'll be right here.
Yeah, please.
So 11:10.
You're fine. Yeah, yes. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Archie. Yeah, Archie. Thank you, Million. So we get back to our letter now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I take a breather. I have to take a breather too because I'm gonna get like sick with it on. You know what I mean?
It's probably causes more sickness
Yeah,
than it's
you
actually
breathe your
helping.
own dirt.
I mean, Unless it's a tightly fitted,
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, Archie. Okay.
Hey, John.
Archie.
What? Well, I guess, do we come in loud? Okay.
Okay. All right.
I just hope they jammed us up too much at the end.
Thank you all. We're back from the break. John, we will take up tab 85.
Tab 85 has actually just recently been withdrawn the request has been withdrawn. So we will not need to take that one up.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to 86.
Item 86 is an action item to allocate $5,233,000 for the construction phase for a SHOP project on State Route 101 in the city of Los Angeles, near the neighborhood of Encino at the Encino pedestrian overcrossing. This is an advance allocation request because the construction funds are programmed in fiscal year 22-23, but the project is ready for an allocation now. The project was originally scoped and programmed as a demolish and reconstruct project, but after further public engagement, it has been changed to a demolish only project. And to ensure continued pedestrian connectivity, the entirety of the work of this location will be accomplished in 3 separate projects. Project number 1, which is this project, will demolish the existing Encino pedestrian overcrossing, which will eliminate the non-standard vertical clearance issue for large vehicles traveling on Highway 101. Project number 2, a locally implemented project, will construct sidewalks on the city streets to reroute pedestrians to the nearby Louise Avenue overcrossing, which currently does accommodate pedestrians. This locally implemented project will be constructed concurrently with the demolition project under separate contracts. And then project number 3 will be a Caltrans project, and this will be programmed in the 2024 SHOP and will include complete streets improvements at the Louise Avenue overcrossing. So the Louise Avenue already does accommodate pedestrians, but this project for the 2024 SHOP will make improvements to it. Staff has reviewed this allocation request as well as the overall plan for pedestrian connectivity at this location and recommends approval of this item.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
And Commissioner Norton?
I just want to thank CTC staff and the electeds that represent this area, this movement towards Louise Avenue and the discussion about a future project. As you may know, in a previous meeting, there was a lot of concern about the Encino overcrossing, and moving this to Louise and still allowing that pedestrian access is a very, very good solution. I just want to thank you for your work, for the electeds' work, and for a lot of the community that came in, because this was a really big issue, and being able to then devise the right kind of ATP project and reconstruction project and augmentation project is a success story. So I want to thank you for your work.
Thank you. We appreciate Caltrans's outreach in this as well.
Thank you. If we don't have any other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Norton and Commissioner Martinez, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 87.
Tab 87 is an action item to allocate $1 million for the construction phase for a SHOP Minor A operational improvement project on State Route 49 in El Dorado County. This allocation will be used to make a financial contribution to an El Dorado County project, which will provide signal, drainage, sidewalk, and pavement improvements on State Route 49 at this location. Staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner comments, questions, motions? Commissioner Davis, do we have a second? Commissioner Liu, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're on tab 88 with Casey.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, thanks. Tab 88 is an information item. This is a third quarter report providing the progress of sub-allocations the department has made on the federal funds for federal fiscal year 21-22. Staff has reviewed the report and has no concerns.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? Okay. I guess we're good. Tab 89.
Tab 89 is an action item requesting to allocate $1,285,852,000 of federal funds for federal fiscal year 21-22. With this request, the total amount will increase to $2,246,191,000. In October 2021, the Commission approved half of the department's request and recommended the additional funds be requested mid-federal fiscal year. This request has also increased due to the following three new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the IIJA program. And the three programs are Carbon Reduction Program, the Community Development Congressionally Directed Spending Program, and the Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost Savings Transportation Program, also known as the PROTECT program. The department is pending guidance from the Federal Highway Administration and is unable to obligate funds to the new IIJA programs this federal fiscal year. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions or comments? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Norton and Martinez, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 90, Tim.
Tab 90 is an information item on the third quarter report for the 2021-22 right-of-way annual allocation. Caltrans is required to report on a quarterly basis on the status of the right-of-way capital plan, including a list of projects added and the balance of the annual allocation. Commission staff has reviewed the report and met with Caltrans right-of-way staff to discuss the report. Commission staff has no comments on the report and recommends approval. Actually, it's not an
informational,
action.
but we like it.
And
Okay,
recommends you read it.
We like it, yes. We accept that. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Tim, 91.
Okay, 91 is an action item. Caltrans is requesting $140 million for the, this item is the right-of-way annual allocation. Caltrans is requesting $140 million for the 2022-23 right-of-way annual allocation for right-of-way capital for STIP and CHOP projects. CTC Resolution G1901 requires Caltrans to present annually its right-of-way capital annual allocation plan to the Commission for review and acceptance. The resolution states that the plan will be supported by a project list, and a link to that project list is included in the book item. Staff worked with Caltrans to make sure the annual allocation was based on realistic budgets to expend funds in the upcoming fiscal year. Staff has reviewed and recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions, concerns, motions?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Elika, item 92.
Commissioners, tab 92 is an action item on Caltrans's Division of Aeronautics request for approval of resolution FDOA-2022-01 to allocate $2.5 million for fiscal year 22-23 to match the Federal Airport Improvement Program grants. Each fiscal year, the Commission approves an annual allocation to match federal AIP grants. This allocation provides the authority for the Department's Division of Aeronautics to sub-allocate matching funds to individual projects as requested by airport sponsors. Staff recommends approval of this resolution to allocate for fiscal year 22-23 AIP grant.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion. That was Commissioner Liu. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 93, Gertesh.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 93 is an information item on the preliminary closeout report for the fiscal year 21-22 minor program annual allocation. The minor program is a one-year program reserved for low-cost, shop-eligible projects. At its June 2021 meeting, the Commission approved a $250 million allocation for the fiscal year 21-22 minor program. As of today, Caltrans has expended over $240 million, or 96% of the annual allocation. Caltrans will submit the final closeout report for the 21-22 minor program to the Commission at the October 2022 meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
No public comment.
Any questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you. Item 94.
Thank you. Tab 94 is an action item requesting $250 million for the fiscal year 22-23 minor program annual allocation. As part of the allocation, the SHOP minor program project list includes 75 minor A projects in the amount of roughly $77 million and 166 minor B projects in the amount of roughly $75 million. There was also roughly $92 million proposed for minor project capital outlay support. Staff has reviewed this item for the minor program annual allocation for fiscal year 22-23 of $250 million and recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions?
Motion to approve Martinez?
Martinez moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 95, Casey.
Tab 95 is an action item for the Federal Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021, also known as the CRISA program. This request consists of 19 projects totaling $12.8 million as shown in attachment A. To date, the Commission has approved 139 projects totaling $144.4 million to local and regional agencies. The guidelines require regions to submit a project list prior to the obligation of funds. Staff has reviewed the project list and finds it consistent with CRISA guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you, Casey. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions?
Second.
Davis, yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, was that Bradshaw? I thought so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 96.
Tab 96 is an action item requesting $54,475,000 to 2 locally administered state transportation improvement program projects on the state highway system. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the state transportation improvement program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Are there any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 97.
Tab 97 is an action item requesting $10,133,000 to 9 locally administered state transportation improvement program projects off the state highway system. This allocation will rehabilitate local roads, construct a Class 1 bike path, and enhance pedestrian improvements, including crosswalk visibility, pedestrian signals, and lighting. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the State Transportation Improvement Program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner Norton? Second, Commissioner Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Tab 98 is an action item requesting $122,000 to the Madera County Transportation Commission's Planning, Programming, and Monitoring, also known as PPM. Statute allows local and regional agencies to program up to 5% of their state transportation improvement program shares towards PPM, which provides salaries to regional agencies who prepare and manage STIP-related activities. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Davis and Bradshaw? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 99.
Tab 99 is an action item requesting to advance $2,534,000 to 8 locally administered state transportation improvement program planning, programming, and monitoring projects. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the State Transportation Improvement Program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioners? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Liu, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bradshaw, was that you? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 100.
Tab 100 is an action item requesting to advance $509,000 to 3 locally administered State Transportation Improvement Program planning, programming, and monitoring projects. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the State Transportation Improvement Program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Bradshaw? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Norton. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 101.
Tab 101 is an action item requesting $18,963,000 for the West Side Parkway State Route 58 Connector Phase 1 project in Kern County. This is an AB 3090 cash reimbursement project, which guarantees reimbursement to an agency who delivers a state transportation improvement program project with their own funds. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions?
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Davis, was that you?
Yes.
Yes. And a second by Vice Chair Gardino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 102, Anya.
Commissioners, tab 102 is an action item requesting allocation of $3,500,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the state administered Marin Sonoma Narrows Contract B7 project on the state highway system in Marin County. This project will improve the operation and safety of US 101 in Marin County by constructing high occupancy vehicle lanes in both northbound and southbound directions. This is the last phase in the overall Marin Sonoma Narrows project and will result in over 50 miles of continuous HOV lanes. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the local partnership program guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of tab 102.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bradshaw, second.
I'll second the motion with the comment that I think this has been before us since the founding of our state.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to the point where I think we're getting narrow-minded. We need to get this done.
Just do it.
Narrows minded.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 103.
Tab 103 is an action item requesting allocation of $483,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the locally administered Ranchero Road widening project in San Bernardino County. This project will create healthier and more livable neighborhoods, improve accessibility around the city of Hesperia, and strengthen goods movement. Staff has reviewed this request and it is consistent with the local partnership program guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of tab 103.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions?
Motion to approve Martinez.
Martinez moves. Do I have a second? Second, Davis, I believe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 104.
Tab 104 is an allocation request totaling $7,272,000 in local partnership, formulaic, and competitive program funds for the locally administered Golden State Corridor Infrastructure Improvements and Economic Development Project off the state highway system in Fresno County. The project will help to stimulate economic development and affordable housing by beautifying community entry points, and will also improve bicycle and pedestrian safety. Staff has reviewed this request and the item is consistent with the local partnership program guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Do we have any questions? And I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Yay, housing.
Yay, Fresno County. Do I have a second? That was Commissioner Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to Anya and tab 105.
Tab 105 is an action item requesting allocation of $37,923,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for 2 locally administered transit projects. $417,000 in formulaic funds is requested for the Purchase Zero emission forklifts project in Alameda County. This project will help maintain the Alameda Contra Costa Transit District's daily operations and limit the amount of carbon emissions. $37,506,000 in formulaic funds is requested for the Metro Red and Purple project located in Los Angeles County. This project will ultimately allow for shorter wait times, less crowding, and more reliable service for riders. Staff has reviewed these requests and they are consistent with the local partnership program guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of tab 105.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Questions from commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Davis moves, Commissioner Grisby seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 106.
Tab 106 is an action item requesting allocation of $2,395,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the locally administered replacement of 30 buses transit project in San Mateo County. This project will significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve the cost effectiveness of operating and maintaining their fleet. This project also complies with the California Air Resources Board's innovative clean transit rule. Staff has reviewed this request and it is consistent with the local partnership program guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of tab 106.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioners, questions or concerns? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Vice Chair Gardino, do I have a second?
Grisby seconds.
Grisby seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anya, you're still up, 107.
Thank you. Tab 107 is an allocation request for $1 million in active transportation program funds and $600,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the locally administered McGowan Parkway Bicycle Lane Pedestrian Route Improvements Project off the state highway system in Yuba County. This project will improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety with construction of new sidewalks, bike lanes, crosswalks, and intersection improvements. In addition, this project will improve accessibility and safety, especially for students in a residential neighborhood. Staff has reviewed this request and it is consistent with the local partnership program as well as the active transportation program guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of tab 107.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Any commissioner questions? And I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve Martinez.
Martinez moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Naveen, 108.
Commissioners, tab 108 is an action item to approve a Cycle 2 Solutions for Congested Corridors program allocation of $9,503,000 for the state-administered Interstate 80 Transit Reliability Project segment in Placer County. This is the third allocation request for the Greater Placer Sacramento Gateway Project, which is programmed for $67 million. Specifically, the Interstate 80 Transit Reliability Project segment will improve travel time reliability for more than 90 bus trips that currently pass through this area daily, including bus services provided to the 20,000 students attending Sierra College. This request is consistent with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and guidelines. Therefore, Commission staff recommends your approval of tab 108.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioners? Commissioner Davis moves.
Second.
Second Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I do have to say, I'm really impressed, Mitch, with your team. with the tongue twisters. They get those out quick. They know what they're talking about. I'm really impressed. I'm gonna want to ask them to do it 10 times, but they're doing really well. Tab 109.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an allocation request for two projects totaling $266,232,000 in trade corridor enhancement funds. The first project is the Route 5760 Confluence Choke Point Relief Project, which includes interchange modifications, auxiliary lanes, and 3 new bridges. The second project is the eastbound SR 91 Atlantic Avenue to Cherry Avenue auxiliary lane project in Los Angeles County, which includes 0.86 miles of auxiliary lanes. For the Route 5760 Confluence Choke Point Relief Project, Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Agency, or LA Metro, is requesting non-proportional spending for the construction phase of the project. As part of the eastbound SR 91 Atlantic Avenue to Cherry Avenue allocation, LA Metro is requesting to extend the period of project completion and correct a minor entry error in the outputs made in the EPPR. Staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Thank you, Kenneth. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bradshaw. Do I have a second? Second by Davis. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 110.
Commissioners, tab 110 is an allocation request of $22,700,000 for construction of the La Media Road Improvements Project in the city of San Diego and San Diego County. This project will increase economic competitiveness by promoting sustained export activity, reduce truck idling, and reduce congestion caused by trucks on local streets. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval.
Good job. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
In appreciation of Commissioner Clarissa Falcone, I move
Yes.
approval.
Thank you, Vice Chair Guardino. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Norton. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 111. We're back to Kenneth.
Commissioners, this is an allocation request for $17,392,000 in Trade Corridor Enhancement Program and Regional Improvement Program funds for the Capital Region Rate I-80 project, which includes the construction of a 5th lane on westbound I-80 between Douglas Boulevard and Riverside Avenue in the city of Roseville, which will deliver congestion relief and safety benefits and reduce delay, thereby improving travel time, reliability of goods movement, as well as substantially increasing freight throughput along this segment of the corridor. Staff has reviewed this item and recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Questions from commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We are on tab 112. I think it's Lori. Over there.
It's crazy how fast.
Commissioners, tab 112 is an action item to approve allocations of $28,297,000 for 22 active transportation program projects. Please note there is a change to this item on the change list. This item includes a $3.5 million construction allocation to the City of West Sacramento's Sycamore Trail Bicycle and Pedestrian Overcrossing Project. This project will construct a shared use overcrossing across Highway 50. Currently, in order to cross the freeway, residents must navigate a narrow, poorly lit underpass with a caged-in sidewalk and no bike lanes. This project will reconnect a community that was bisected by the construction of Highway 50. The city is socioeconomically divided with low income and communities of color concentrated around the project site. Once constructed, the project will provide a safe, well-lit option to access to schools, parks, transit, places of worship, grocery stores, a community garden, and employment opportunities. Staff has reviewed these allocation requests and finds them consistent with the Active Transportation Program guidelines and the adopted program. Therefore, staff recommends approval with the changes noted on the change list.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Vice Chair Gardino moved. Do I have a second?
Grisby seconds.
Grisby seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 113.
Commissioners, tab 113 is an action item to approve allocations of $11,906,000 for 6 active transportation program projects. This includes a $10.1 million allocation to the city of Chico for the Bikeway 99 Phase 5 20th Street pedestrian bicycle overcrossing project. This project closes a gap in a 7-mile facility that parallels State Route 99 by constructing a multi-use overcrossing over 20th Street. The project will serve a low-income community with limited access to vehicles. Once constructed, the project will connect community members to government services, medical centers, community centers, parks, grocery stores, and employment opportunities. Staff has reviewed these allocation requests and finds them consistent with the Active Transportation Program guidelines and the adopted program. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Norton and Martinez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 114.
Tab 114 is an action item to approve a PS&E phase allocation of $544,000 for the multi-funded active transportation program and STIP City of Willits Rail with Trail project. Willits is a low-income community with limited active transportation facilities. Bicyclists ride on narrow streets with parked cars and no bike lanes, and pedestrians must navigate crumbling sidewalks, utility poles, and street signs. This project will construct a 1.6-mile multi-use path parallel to Main Street, safely connecting residents to schools, the hospital, government services, the county museum, transit stops, the library, parks, post office, shopping, senior center, and a food bank. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the program guidelines and the adopted program. Therefore, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Questions from commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Bradshaw and Martinez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 115. Casey.
Tab 115 is an action item requesting $5,982,000 to 2 transit and intercity rail capital program projects in San Diego County. The outcome of these projects include reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing ridership through investments of improved on-time performance, safety and rail corridor capacity for the Pacific Surfliner and coaster trains, improving integration with commuter passenger services and providing access to the Pacific Surfliner services for low-income households and nearby communities. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the Commission's allocation policy. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you, Casey. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Liu, second by Grisby. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 116.
Commissioners, tab 116 is an action item requesting the allocation of $206,000 in short line railroad improvement program funds for the freight rail improvements Black Point Bridge repair project in Sonoma County. This project will help strengthen the area's short line rail operations and provide connection to the national rail network. Staff has reviewed this request and it is consistent with the short line railroad improvement program guidelines and policies. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
No public comment.
Commissioner questions on 115? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Commissioner Bradshaw moves. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, just to be clear, this is item 116.
Oh, 116. I'm sorry. Yes. We have a second by Commissioner Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are going to take 117 next.
Good afternoon, Chair Eager, Commissioners, and Executive Director Weiss. It's an honor to be here with you all in the beautiful city of Sacramento. Tab 117 is an action item to consider approval for project allocation time extensions for 227 shop projects. Staff is recommending deferral of 5 shop projects to the August meeting to allow more time to evaluate and discuss outstanding issues with Caltrans. Those 5 projects are numbered 87, 110, 118, 121, and 132 in tab 117. Additionally, please make note of the change list for tab 117. Staff has reviewed tab 117 and recommends approval of all projects as listed on the pink time extension table. Staff also recommends deferral of projects 87, 110, 118, 121, and 132 to the August CTC meeting.
Good job.
Hey, Jaden, I have a question with that intro. Do you work for the Chamber of Commerce?
No, just a Sacramento born and raised, right?
I like that hometown pride.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good for you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Do we have any questions from commissioners? Then I will entertain a motion with those amendments. Was that Commissioner Davis?
Just one little question here. You were talking about through, what are we taking? Are we taking up through 130 or are we, because you mentioned 132 and others, are we going through 137 here?
Yes, Commissioner Liu. So this was an action for tab
Just to
one.
be clear, it's
Just
just
tab
item
117.
117, it's project 132
Yeah.
within 117.
Okay, that's where my confusion was.
We're just doing one tab
Thank
currently.
you. Sorry.
Yeah. So do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good job.
Thank you. Commissioners, tab 118 was withdrawn from the agenda as noted on the change list. Therefore, tabs 119 through 129 are action items to consider approval for project allocation time extensions for 24 active transportation program projects, 11 state transportation improvement program projects, 5 formulaic local partnership program projects, 5 solution for congested corridor program projects, 4 trade corridor enhancement program projects, and 1 short line railroad improvement program project. Please also make note of the change list for tabs 121 and 129. Each time extension request is consistent with each respective program's guidelines. Staff has reviewed tabs 119 through 129 and recommends approval in accordance with the change list and the pink time extension table.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from commissioners?
Motion to approve Martinez.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Norton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You can breathe now.
Jaden, I was waiting for 3 French hens and 2 turtle doves.
I had a joke to add and a partridge in a pear tree.
It's the same page. So Naveen, tab 130.
Commissioners, tab 130 is an action item to approve 2 Cycle 2 Solutions for Congested Corridors program time extensions for the locally administered Dry Creek Greenway project located in Placer County and the Auburn Boulevard Complete Streets project located in Sacramento County. Approval of this item would extend the period of project allocation of the construction phase for both projects for 12 months to June 30th, 2023. These requests are consistent with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and guidelines and the timely use of funds policy. Therefore, Commission staff recommends your approval of tab 130.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Questions?
Second.
Was that Davis and Bradshaw? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We will now take tabs 131 through 137 together. Celeste?
Commissioners, tabs 131 through 137 will be presented and voted on together as one group. Each of these time extensions is consistent with the respective program guidelines and the Commission's timely use of funds policy. Therefore, staff recommends approval of tabs 131 through 137.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Norton moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bradshaw, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Tab 138, Gertesh.
Commissioners, tab 138 is an action item to approve time extensions for the period of project completion for 4 SHOP projects. Staff would like to highlight project 2 in particular from this book item, which is requesting a 12-month time extension to complete construction. Project 2 is the I-5 North HOV/Empire Ave and Burbank Boulevard Segment 3 project in Los Angeles County and has combined funding with the State Transportation Improvement Program. This project will be recommended for approval for SHOP portions of work, and the STIP will provide its recommendation under tab 140. Staff has reviewed tab 138 and recommends approval in accordance with the pink time extension recommendation table.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Have any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Norton?
Yes. Living near this area, this is a project that I know has been with us for a very long time, let's just say. And I was wondering if Director Tavares and all of us, we could have some insight as to when it's finally going to be complete. I know you've done a lot to move it forward, so thank you.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Norton. Yes, so the team plans to have the entire project complete 1 year from now, so the summer of 2023. There were some Burbank unmet needs that needed to be included on the project as part of the partnership with the local agency, and those will be included, and those are currently under construction right now.
That's great. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to the groundbreaking and getting it done. Ribbon cutting next year.
Next year at this time.
Woo!
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Davis moves. Do I have a second by Commissioner Bradshaw? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 139.
Commissioners, tab 139 is an action item to approve 1 post-fact time extension for the period of project completion. Although the posted book item shows 4 projects, only project 2 will require a vote. Projects 1, 3, and 4 have reached the construction contract acceptance milestone prior to this June commission meeting. Hence, a post-fact time extension is not required.
Oh, great.
Projects 1, 3, and 4 remain in the book item despite not needing a time extension to continue a discussion heard at the May CTC meeting. This discussion is focused on the ongoing efforts to bring projects into compliance with the Commission's timely use of funds policy. Staff anticipates several post-fact time extension requests at the August meeting for projects which have already reached the construction contract acceptance milestone. Those projects, similar to projects 1, 3, and 4 from this book item, are anticipated to be an information item to shed light on the number of projects which are out of compliance of the SHOP's timely use of funds policy. Commission staff has received assurances from Caltrans that ongoing training efforts are being conducted to ensure projects are complying with the timely use of funds policy. Project 2 is the I-5 South Carpool Lane Orange County line to I-605 Segment 2 project in Los Angeles County. Caltrans is requesting a 50-month time extension to complete construction, which will yield a deadline of July 2023. This project is combined with STIP funding and will be heard from a STIP perspective under tab 140. But staff wants to highlight this project from a SHOP perspective to again provide clarity on the differences between the 2 programs. Although not preferred, the SHOP can provide timely use of funds policy flexibility within its guidelines due to the asset-based approach for delivering needed projects for the traveling public. This approach differs from other commission competitive programs or statutorily bound programs. The I-5 South Carpool Lane project will be recommended for approval for SHOP portions of work, and STIP will provide its recommendation under tab 140. Staff has reviewed this item, and projects 1, 3, and 4 do not require an action due to reaching CCA prior to this meeting. Staff recommends approval of project 2 in accordance with the pink time extension recommendation table. If there are any questions, Caltrans is also available to provide answers.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
We do have one attendee looking to make public comment at this time. We have Ernesto Chavez. Ernesto, you're free to unmute yourself and comment.
Thank you. Again, Ernesto Chavez with LA Metro. I would like to thank the opportunity to comment on these items, both tabs 139 and 140. Metro has been for many years working in close partnership with Caltrans on the improvements to this corridor, and we see this as an essential need. And although construction has taken longer than both our agencies would have originally anticipated, we remain committed to the project and to our partnership with Caltrans, and we think it's imperative that the projects continue to move forward and are completed as soon as possible. Although Metro's financial role is only funding some of these projects, given the importance of improving the corridor and the highway, we strongly support the time extension for the 4 projects on I-5 under agenda items 133 and 140. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment?
I see no other public comment at this time.
Any questions from commissioners? Oh, Martinez moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tab 140.
Tab 140 is an action item for 3 post-fact time extensions. Project 1 is a post-fact time extension for 92 months for the I-5 North HOV Empire Avenue and Burbank Boulevard Segment 3 project in Los Angeles County. Statute limits the approval of time extensions to no more than 20 months. Therefore, staff recommends you vote no on Project 1. Project 2 is a post-fact time extension for 43 months for the I-10 HOV lanes from Citrus Street to Route 57 project in Los Angeles County. The district requested an additional 60 months to complete construction at the time of allocation. However, this request did not make it into the approved allocation. Due to this error, staff recommends this be brought back to the August meeting to correct the discrepancy and to request a post-fact time extension. Project 3 is a post-fact time extension for 50 months, that's 50, for the I-5 South Carpool Lane Orange County line to I-605 Segment 2 project in Los Angeles County. Statute limits the approval of time extensions to no more than 20 months. Therefore, staff recommends you vote no on project number 3. Staff has reviewed these requests and recommends you vote no on projects 1 and 3 and the deferral of project number 2.
Do we have any public comment on this issue?
I see no public comment at this time.
Do we have any questions from commissioners? So we'll be voting no on 1 and 3 and an extension on number 2.
Correct. Deferral to the August meeting.
Defer,
Please.
sorry, not extension, defer. Do I have a motion? So moved, which was Davis. Okay, we have a second. Second, Norton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries that we voted no on 1 and 3 and deferred on number 2.
Correct.
Thank you.
Defer to August.
We will take 141 and 142 together.
Commissioners, tab 141 and 142 are action items to consider approval for time extensions for the period of project completion for 3 active transportation program projects and 1 multi-funded state transportation improvement program and solutions for congested corridor program project. Each time extension request is consistent with each respective program's guidelines. Staff has reviewed tabs 141 and 142 and recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Commissioner questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I didn't hear who moved. Bradshaw? Bradshaw and Lou? Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Both 141 and 142 have passed. We will move on to 143 through 149. Celeste.
Commissioners, tab 143 through 149 will be presented and voted on together as one group. Each of these time extensions is consistent with their respective program guidelines and the Commission's timely use of funds policy. Therefore, staff recommends approval of tabs 143 through 149.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Questions from commissioners? I'll entertain a motion. Davis?
Second.
Bradshaw? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries through 149. We have Lori that will present tab 150.
Yes, Commissioners, tab 150 is an action item to consider an active transportation program project development expenditure time extension for the PS&E and right-of-way phases for the Franklin Boulevard Complete Streets Phase 2 project in the city of Sacramento. The project proposes to reduce Franklin Boulevard from 4 lanes to 2 lanes with the center turn lane, add Class 4 bikeways, and improve pedestrian facilities. Commissioners, this is a very unusual request, which is why it's being presented separately. The ATP guidelines allow for agencies to request an extension of up to 12 months for project development expenditures. However, the city of Sacramento is requesting an exception to the guidelines and asking for an 18-month extension for both those phases. The city has experienced a number of unexpected delays in completing the design phase. This project was programmed in the ATP Cycle 4 and is funding the PS&E and right-of-way phases on Franklin Boulevard from 19th Avenue to 32nd Avenue. The city was also successful in the next ATP cycle, Cycle 5, to fund the construction phase of the full project from Sutterville Road to 32nd Avenue. In fact, it was the highest scoring project last cycle. To develop a design that was fully feasible and implementable for the Cycle 5 construction project required a complex iterative design effort. This was happening during the COVID-19 pandemic, causing about 12 months of delay because of staff adjusting to virtual work, staff illnesses, revising the public engagement strategy, and consultant selection. Another 6 months of delay occurred from the architectural and engineering consultant audit and review process. This process is particularly challenging for large projects with many subconsultants. The delays in completing design have caused corresponding delays to the right-of-way phase. The design phase needed to advance far enough for the city to determine the extent of right-of-way impacts and determine appropriate compensation for landowners. The city understands that the ATP guidelines set a maximum time extension request of 12 months for project development expenditure. They realize now that they made a mistake in not requesting an 18-month extension for expenditures of design and right-of-way when the Commission's 2020 interim timely use of funds policy to address project delivery impacts as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic was in place. As I stated before, this is an exception to the ATP guidelines. Staff is recommending this exception based on the following reasons. The extremely complicated design of the project. The city would have received the longer extension if they would have requested the extension when the COVID timely use of funds policy was in place, and because this is an expenditure request. If it would have been an allocation request, staff would have been much less inclined to recommend approval. The city is on track with their project now, and without this time extension, they stand to lose about $1 million. Based on these reasons, staff recommends approving the 18-month project development time extensions for the PS&E and right-of-way phases for the Franklin Boulevard Complete Streets Phase 2 project in the city of Sacramento, as shown in the pink time extension table. The city of Sacramento is here if you'd like to ask them any more questions on the project.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment at this time.
Do any of our commissioners have questions for the city of Sacramento? Okay, Commissioner Davis?
Just no concern over this setting some sort of precedent for future extensions that are outside of the program?
Yes, there is a lot of concern about that. And it took a lot of meetings with the city of Sacramento and SACOG and to convince Teresa and I to recommend this. Like I said, you know, we would have granted it if they would have remembered to get that COVID extension. So it seemed like.
So it sort of has its own little box?
It does, yeah, I would say that.
Do we know why they didn't ask for it previously?
He's being sacrificed to go up there.
Hi, this is Jesse Gotham, supervising engineer with City of Sacramento, and I'm here with Megan Johnson. And so we are the staff working on this project. The reason we didn't ask is we wanted to get our allocation request into the May meeting. And this was kind of when the pandemic was still materializing and the broader, I guess, effects of it. And we didn't realize the procurement effort would take us as long as possible, as long as it did. Megan, do you have anything else?
I think that pretty well summarizes it. We went into this with the best of intentions and then just were caught by surprise with the full impacts of the pandemic, as well as with staffing shortages that we've experienced and having to adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
I would make the motion then, but as long as that the box has this ribbon all wrapped around it with this whole story so that it makes the potential precedent that much narrower.
Yes, so it's specific to this particular project.
Second, Martinez.
Yeah, and you beat me to it appropriately so, Michelle. I will support this if you give us a nice welcome to Sacramento greeting.
Absolutely.
There you go. Okay.
We'll all ride bikes on Franklin Boulevard.
Yes.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. 151, Hannah.
Yeah, commissioners, this is also an unusual extension request. So this is a request from the San Diego Association of Governments, known as SANDAG, and they're requesting a 24-month extension for the right-of-way phase. This is also not consistent with our guidelines. Our guidelines allow for a 12-month extension request after allocation. This item was on the May agenda and we requested it be deferred to June so that we could have more time to work with SANDAG on a path forward. There was a letter outlining the challenges of this project that was circulated at the May meeting, and I'll just cover the main points of that letter. The first thing is that when they originally applied, they had expected 10 right-of-way acquisitions, and that number increased to 36 real estate actions on 22 parcels, so more than they thought. Then some of the properties are owned by businesses and public agencies, and so that process has taken longer than they expected. Some of the negotiations with the parcel owners required in-person meetings, and those got delayed because of the pandemic. The SANDAG is having to mitigate damages and relocate access easements, and that is also taking time. And some of the properties will go into condemnation, and that can take 2 years in the courts, especially with the backlog because of the pandemic. So it's for those reasons that they need this additional time. And based on our review, it appears that these circumstances are outside of their control. And so we do recommend approval of their 24-month request.
So it went from 10 parcels to 36? How is it?
36, 22 parcels, and there's more than one action on some of the parcels. So essentially it went from 10 actions, 10 parcels to 22.
So how did they not know there were 22?
Well, yeah, is Ariana here?
Yes, we do have Bruce Smith on the line looking to comment. Well, however, Bruce is not connected to his audio unless you are able to voice over like the last person on the phone. We cannot unmute you to comment. Is there anyone else available?
Yes, Dawn Batiste for the San Diego Association of Governments. I think Bruce is trying to unmute, but once we clear environmental for the project, we start the PS&E and right-of-way support phases concurrently and move forward. So when the project was originally programmed. We were still in early phases of design. We had enough design to clear environmental, but we were continuing the design work. And I think that that is probably where the change occurred in terms of the number of parcels impacted for the various easements that were required.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just adding to what Dawn said, the other reason the numbers increased substantially, I'd originally only requested the permanent takes, that we obtain all the permanent takes because we didn't have construction funding yet for the project. But after we got into the right-of-way process, our right-of-way attorneys said, no, you need to do everything at once. So all the temporary construction easements were added in. And this is a project where we've got 2 miles of track running up a canyon, and the access is very difficult. So when we added in all the temporary right-of-way takes, that increased the total number of actions that we had to eventually obtain. And we're still hoping to do it within the budget that we have got. And again, we didn't understand the effect the pandemic would have on trying to deliver a complicated project like this. And the other sort of pertinent point about the Serenity Miramar two-phase project, we've had 4 derailments in this area in the last 20 years. So it's a particularly difficult piece of right-of-way. The trains are traveling at 25 miles an hour up through the Miramar Hill at the moment because of the curves. When the railway was built in 1885, they didn't really have the heavy earth moving equipment we have today. So, we're trying to straighten out 25-mile-an-hour curves through what we term mountain terrain. So it's just a very complicated project, and I just appeal to you to help us try and deliver this project.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Any public comment? Justin? Public comment?
I see no other public comment at this time.
Thank you. Then I will entertain a motion on 151.
Motion to approve Martinez.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're almost to the end. 152 through 154. Cortez.
Commissioners, tabs 152 through 154 are action items requesting amendments to previously approved time extensions for the periods of project allocation, project completion, and project development expenditure, respectively. These requests are an exception to the SHOP guidelines. As previously alluded to in tab 139, the SHOP can provide timely use of funds policy flexibility within its guidelines due to the asset-based approach for delivering needed projects for the traveling public. This approach differs from other commission competitive programs or statutorily bound programs. Staff believes these projects are on track to deliver their respective phases within a reasonable amount of time. Their risks and constraints are low, and the totals of each time extension still remain under the 20-month maximum limit allowed in the SHOP guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends approval of tabs 152 through 154.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time.
Do we have any questions from commissioners? I will entertain a motion to accept 152 through 154.
Second.
Davis Bradshaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Cortez. We are now at public comment. So do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment about any of the issues?
Madam Chair, we were told to expect one. We haven't seen them yet, so we may need to give them a moment.
I give 30 seconds.
That's why I said moment, not minute.
Not seeing any public comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming to the June meeting. We look forward to seeing you next month in San Jose. Yes, San Jose. With that, we are adjourned.
Well done, Madam Chair.